Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Great to be with you on this Thursday. Santa, by the way. Magic Radio tonight, 6 to 7. Yes, indeed. Nothing like the Magic Radio. More than 80 years. I've talked about it and bragged about it many, many times. Because I think it's just really special. And there are now parents who, when they were younger, talked to the Magic Radio that now bring their children in or their grandchildren. It's really cool. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, and it really is outstanding inventory, all with tremendous warranties. Warranties are more important than ever. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. They go over every vehicle. That makes the buying experience just more relaxing and more enjoyable for you. And a great service department. Takes care of the routine, difficult, whatever. When it comes time for your next trade-in for an SMC vehicle, it's in great shape because you use their service department. It's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. This is December 7th. And being December 7th, Pearl Harbor was attacked on this date in 1941. So we're talking 82 years ago today, which thrust the United States into World War II. Let's face it, I was born, 17 years after it happened? But my parents talked about it, what it was like for them all the time, during that time when it did happen. My father was 9 at the time. And my mother was 5. And so it's something that, as much as we remember September 11th in our generation, December 7th and the attack on Pearl Harbor is something that cannot be forgotten at any point. It also is I believe tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. And so we want to make sure that that is recognized. We do that every year. Again, and enjoy a special time. Athletes sue the NCAA and Power 5 conferences, claim rules prohibit them from getting money. Ooh, Center County Night's coming up on January 10th at Jordan Center. They want to know if I'd like to go to Center County Night. Thank you. Appreciate it. already was planning on attending regardless. I always love these mass emailings. They're like, over here in the back, I'm probably going to be there. It's a good chance. Good chance I'm going to show up. Big news in golf. Jon Rahm is going to get $500 million to go to Live Golf. Wow. And that news broke today. He's going to leave the PGA Tour for the Saudi Arabian Finance Live Golf League. And the deal is believed to be longer than 3 years. I said 500, I was wrong. It's actually worth more than $300 million. And includes an ownership stake for Rahm in a new Live Golf team, which then, of course, means he can get more money. Now, Rahm's decision comes at a time when the PGA Tour and Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund are attempting to hammer out the final details of a framework agreement that would combine their commercial interests into a new for-profit entity, PGA Tour Enterprises. I don't know if this helps at all. The framework agreement included a clause that prohibited both sides from attempting to poach each side's players, but it was removed after the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division raised concerns that it restricted competition. A conglomerate led by the Fenway Sports Group, which owns the Red Sox and the Penguins, is among the final potential bidders, according to ESPN. So happened to be Liberty Media, which has an ownership stake in Formula One, SiriusXM, and the Atlanta Braves, and Acorn Growth Companies, an Oklahoma City-based equity group that had previously focused on aerospace and defense industries. Sources previously told ESPN the PGA Tour could form a partnership with both PIF and a U.S.-based equity firm because of concerns that a PIF-only deal would not be approved by federal regulators. So now Rahm joins this roster: Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, Bubba Watson, Henrik Stenson, and Cameron Smith. There's a few major winners in there. Let's see. Rahm's won the Masters and the U.S. Open. Koepka's won 6, including this year's PGA. Mickelson's won 6. Dustin Johnson's won 2 Masters and the U.S. Open. DeChambeau won a U.S. Open. Bubba Watson's won 2 Masters. Henrik Stenson won the British Open. So, wow. There you go. And, yeah. And as we said earlier, Duke is focusing on Manny Diaz for its head coaching vacancy. We'll see how that plays out over the next 24 hours. And then there's the Steelers and the Patriots tonight. They are testing a 30-year low. The over-under on the game is not Iowa-esque. But in the NFL, it's important. Iowa and Nebraska, by the way, the over-under was 24.5. Oh, and they did end up at the under. Again, if you're on Iowa football, if you happen to be gambling and you are betting on the over, you need the 800 number. The Patriots-Steelers game dipped to 29.5. It is the lowest over-under since a 2006 divisional playoff game between the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears, where the over-under was 30. This is 29.5. There hasn't been a total under 30 since December 26, 1993, when frigid temperatures combined contributed to 3 games having sub-30 totals. That Sunday featured the lowest total at 28 on a Colts-Patriots game in Foxborough, where the temperatures were in the low 20s, 23-mile-per-hour winds. By the way, the over won. The Patriots won the game 38-0. Tonight, not much of an issue. Temperatures in the 40s with light winds. Mitchell Trubisky will start at quarterback for the Steelers. Can he pick it out with a high ankle sprain? The Patriots, we don't know what they're doing. I think it's Bailey Zappi tonight with Mac Jones in the wings. They're coming off a sterling loss to the Chargers. Jacksonville and Cleveland, which has the potential of backup quarterbacks, windy, rainy weather, is at 30.5. Oh, goodness gracious. And people thought, I mean, in all seriousness, people thought Tom Brady was wrong. Oh, Tom shouldn't have said that. Tom Brady is not wrong. I've said this for a couple of years now. And I meant it. For a couple of years now, I've said this. The league is, the NFL has some really terrific moments, but there's a lot of in the league. A lot of flat line in the league. Yeah. So, crazy. And I'll watch. I mean, it's not like I don't watch. Yeah, I watch. It's. You know, will I watch tonight's game? Yeah, I'll watch tonight's game. Darn right I will. I'm going to watch tonight's game. No problem with that. No. So, yeah. Oh, well. And Olu Fashanu, consensus first-team All-American, at least to this point. The Athletic was the latest to put him out there. Abdul Carter's second team on one of them, and Daquan Hardy's third team in another as a returner. It's great. Great, great, great. I'm happy for all these kids. Very happy for all of them. Because, you know, I'm around them all the time. You know, when you're around them, you realize, you know, hey, you realize, you know, now, it doesn't mean like every single kid you run into is a great kid. No. Right? Or some are quiet, or some are outgoing, or, you know, different types of personalities. But, well, like, Olu Fashanu. Great kid? Oh, yeah. Great kid. Hardy, I really like Hardy. Been around Hardy 5 years. Really like him a lot. Abdul Carter, I like. I'm thrilled for all of them. Thrilled for Chop, who's another terrific guy. All right, take a break. Come back, more in a moment, here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Great to have you with us on the show today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Pete Thamel, Brett McMurphy, Ross Dellinger, all saying that Manny Diaz and Duke, that appears to be what they would like to go, the direction they want to go in, and that's been the focal point. That's been their focus, has been on Manny. We'll see how it plays out over the next 24 hours or so. And go from there. I always just wait to see how it finally plays out. As you know, I'm not big on speculation. I'm not big on hot takes. Never have been. But that's why, news is out there. Major reporters who are connected in have been able to put the story out there. So now we wait and see how it plays. Bill Bender in the next half hour. I've got to ask Bill what he thinks of Lane Kiffin, because I've never been around the guy. I've never once been around him. So the Peach Bowl will be the first time I've ever been in the same room with him, heard him, whatever. I've seen the tweets, I've seen the press conference comments over the years and so forth. Interesting. I also think he's a really smart coach. Really smart. And you look at their script. Yeah, I watch, they scored on 7 of their opening 12 drives this year, 6 touchdowns and 1 field goal. That's your script. No. That tells you a lot. Now, then after that, a lot of teams against their script usually did pretty well against Penn State. They only ended up scoring twice. Pretty well in terms of moving the ball early. The teams only scored twice off at Penn State their opening drive, but they moved the ball, so it takes a little bit to get used to the pace and what's going on. And Jackson Dart is a dual-threat quarterback. He can run. Now, he's not out there running all the time, but he can run. And that's something that Penn State will have to control. Even without Chop Robinson, Penn State still has Dani Dennis Sutton. They still have Amin Vanover. They still have Adisa Isaac. They still have Zariah Fisher. They still have Jamel Lyons. And, again, if you're wondering about Lyons, who played 4 games during the regular season, what does this do to his eligibility playing in the Peach Bowl? Nothing. Bowl games no longer count against the number of games played in a season for somebody looking at redshirt. So let's take a true freshman. Say you play 4 games in the regular season, your team ends up making it to the conference championship game. Well, guess what? You can play in the conference championship game. It doesn't count in terms of your eligibility. So you can end up playing conference championship game, opening round next year, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. You as a player can end up playing 9 games, 4 regular season games, and 5 postseason games. Right? Conference championship game, opening round, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. Right? You actually play 5 postseason games. As long as you only played 4 regular season games, you're a redshirt freshman the next year. Bill Bender, Sporting News, next half hour here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory with great warranties. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. And a fabulous service department that backs it up every step of the way, routine to difficult, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. All right, one of the favorites out there because, he does great work and is a better guy. That's Bill Bender, Sporting News. Bill, how have you been? Great to have you back. Hello, Bill.
I'm here. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Bill, great to have you back, my friend.
Mute button. I need the mute button for myself sometimes, as my wife might say. Good to talk to you. Where do you want to go?
Well, okay, the obvious starting place will be the playoff and how it ended up playing out. What did you think in the end about both the selections and the explanation of the process?
Well, they got it wrong from a strictly, heart of competition, the way the structure is, I was saying you're trying to cram 5 people into 4 chairs so somebody has to sit on the floor. And the way that they did it, so they got it wrong. I'll be clear about that for all the Florida State fans out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the easiest route in terms of the blowback they would get back. I think they would end up getting more blowback from the SEC had Alabama been left out, and even more blowback from the state of Texas, who beat Alabama in the regular season, and we'd be wondering what the value of this regular season is that we cling on to so hard with college football, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, and I understand it. Look, I think if they were so concerned about Jordan Travis not playing, why wouldn't they drop down to 5th the week after he got hurt? Why'd they wait till now?
Right. And that's the worst part of it, is it's really, we can dance around it all we want, but they pin this on a kid that got hurt. And the entire nature of the Florida State season changed when Jordan Travis fractured his ankle. And he became he's basically the reason why, and I hate that because he's a kid. It's not like Jordan Travis planned to fracture his ankle against North Alabama. And you raise a great point. If they were going to drop him, why didn't they do it after that North Alabama game? Why did they not do it after the offense looked just okay against Florida? They waited until the absolute last minute. And something, Steve, I'll say this. After the Big Ten championship game, when Urban Meyer said they can't take Alabama without taking Texas, that's when it kind of dawned on me that's probably what the committee's going to do.
Right. Well, exactly. They had no choice. Texas went to Tuscaloosa and won by double digits. You could not justify Alabama in and Texas out just on the fact that something on the field had to count for something.
Right, and that's the other end of it. Like, they could have hedged, and kind of what I was going with was I didn't think there was a chance Alabama would be left out because it's SEC, it's Greg Sankey. If you watch those 5 conference championship games, I think most sane college football fans would agree that the Georgia-Alabama game was the best of the 5 in terms of what you saw in terms of the product. And I just didn't see a way. But by the setup and the structure, if we were being fair about it, then Alabama should have been left out. And I say that knowing that I'm probably going to pick Alabama to win the national championship.
Right. Well, no, they went from 8. I think they entered at 8, right? They went from 8 to 4. Georgia fell from 1 to 6 when it was all said and done. And look, and they don't have to look far for blame, because the ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips, along with Kevin Warren and George Kliavkoff, you and I both know when the, quote, alliance was put together, they put the brakes on the 12-team playoff, which everybody thought was going to start this year.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of that. And then there's a little bit of, we got into kind of a spirited debate in one of our editorial meetings with another good friend of both of ours, Mike DeCourcy, and I said, well, what's stopping them from splitting a national championship if Florida State somehow beats Georgia? Now, Georgia may have a bunch of opt-outs, and Florida State won't have Jordan Travis, and they won't have Johnny Wilson. He opted out, but what's stopping the school from doing that? You know, and here we are, 2023, and we've gone through the pool era and the BCS and now the 14 playoff era. And I keep cautioning college football fans that if you think the controversy and the cronyism and those kind of things are going to go away just because we're going to 12,
no.
I think you're going to be disappointed.
You're going to be very, Bill, you and I both know they're all going to be very disappointed, because it's been there. Dave Refson, mutual friend of ours, wrote a book about the roots of college football starting in the late 1880s. When you read it, not much has changed.
No.
It's just a different era with no face masks.
Right, and they weren't dealing with, like the Spanish flu and those kind of things, although we did have to get through COVID.
Yeah.
It really hasn't. And Dave, I've read that book, and it's just some of the political backdrop of this sport. And one of the dangerous precedents that was set, it's not the one that you think. It's not they're going to leave unbeaten teams out. No, they're just going to treat every other conference that isn't the SEC or the Big Ten.
Yep.
They won't be treated equally. But not even close. I think when Greg Sankey went on game day and used the Sesame Street comparison, that was kind of a statement daring the committee to leave us. He was basically daring them to leave them out.
Yeah. And look, in the end, it's going to be the top 5 champions and 7 at large. And of the 7 at large, geez, Bill, I wouldn't doubt that the vast majority of the time of the 7, it's going to be a combination of SEC Big Ten teams, and nobody's going to get more than one.
Right.
Hey, that's what I think.
It's definitely going to be like that. And the SEC and the Big Ten will control the narrative. You saw this proposed legislation from Charlie Baker about we're moving into another subdivision, which would be the high-rent college football program, so to speak. Penn State would be in that in that group.
Sure.
That Mike and I have kind of been going back and forth on this. I think that's where we're headed. I don't know what the time frame is, but the more we're pushing with NIL, portal, other programs having trouble keeping up, they're going to put those high-rent programs in a division by themselves. I can see it. It would take a long time. It's not going to happen overnight, but I still think we're headed in that direction.
Let's see. Now, this is how Bill and I roll, because he already anticipated my next topic and question before I even got to it. He knew I was going to go this direction. To me, this is the NCAA trying to still keep its toe in the big football pool by coming up with this proposal to give that level of autonomy. So at least the NCAA is still in the ball game. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I think you're dead on, because I've used this comparison. I'm a big high school football guy, and I know you guys love your high school football in PA. We love it in Ohio, and there's a reason why there's 7 divisions, because the high-end schools, the Lakewood St. Edwards and the Medinas and Mentors, where Drew Aller played up there. He'll tell you it's a little bit different than playing a D4 school. Just like as much as we hate to admit it, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, even within the Big Ten, you could make a strong argument that – I tell my Ohio State buddies this all the time. So you really only have 3 games on your schedule that you can actually lose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe that changes with a different coach, maybe not. I mean, this has been going on for about 30 years at Ohio State and 30 years at Penn State and Michigan. You get the wrong coach, it can go south, but that's why I think it would make sense in some ways. Now, getting through how much money the conferences, the TV networks, all those things make, I understand that. But to your point, this is the NCAA's way of still having some, because they could theoretically go off and do their own thing if they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely they could. And then there would be a question, and this is where Mike DeCourcy would come in. Say they went off on their own. What would they do with the NCAA tournament, which is the sole moneymaker for the entire enterprise?
Yeah, the basketball side of it is so key. And Mike and I remember we were sitting there at Big Ten Media Day together a couple years ago, and Mike and I are kind of on the opposite ends of this one in terms of what can and can't happen. And I just told him today, we were talking back and forth, and I said, did any of us think 2 years ago that Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC would be on the Big Ten schedule in 2024? I didn't, and here we are. So, or that SMU, Cal, and Stanford would be in the ACC. Certainly didn't have that on the bingo card. So there's a lot. I mean, if anybody said that 15 years ago, you would be like, what are you even talking about? And that's the fact that we are at that phase suggests that anything can happen. It's exactly what I was texting some of my friends over the weekend and not to bring it back to the playoff part, but I had buddies saying they can't do that. They just can't. They can't. And I said, guys, they can do whatever they want, and they probably will. And there's nothing we can do about it.
Right. Also interesting in all this that when they go to a 12-team playoff, a guy like Kyle McCord in all likelihood would not have gone into the transfer portal yet. But because there's only a 4-team playoff, he's in it. Cam Ward's in it. I mean, there's, DJ's in it. Arch Manning says he's staying at Texas. I mean, your thoughts on the quarterbacks in this thing, because it sounds like, based on what I understand, McCord may visit or talk to Nebraska next.
Yeah, it's wild. It's another part of this thing that I have mixed feelings about. One, I'm never going to say no to a kid getting an opportunity to play, and this is the environment we live in where guys come and go in the portal. On the other end of it, you're like, there are 7th-year quarterbacks that have played at 3 different schools that when you look at their college football reference page, it looks like a pro football reference page with a journeyman NFL quarterback. And another debate we've been having is, and this got hot between some of the sporting news writers today. I said, I don't think a college quarterback is worth monetarily, and I know what they do for the university. I understand that. I don't think they're worth like what Brock Purdy is to the Niners. It's a dangerous precedent when you're paying a college kid more than the person who does it at the highest level, and you're paying them more money. And I know they may mean more to Ohio State, Penn State, and Alabama. I get that. But if you're paying a quarterback $3 million in college, why would he go to the NFL on a rookie contract where he could theoretically be making less money?
Yeah. Well, no, that's a really good point because I'll never forget when Bevel, who's been, he was the offensive coordinator for Seattle and so forth. I'll never forget because of a Mormon mission, he was playing for Wisconsin and was 25 years old playing against Penn State. And Drew Bledsoe was 21 playing for the Patriots as the first overall pick. And you look today, you're going to tell me that a 23 to 26-year-old starting quarterback in the NFL, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, is less valuable than a 19-year-old at a university?
I can't see it now, and I was getting pushback because they're like, that makes sense. There would be outliers certainly, like what Arch Manning brings into Texas versus and the example I used, and yes, it's a selfish, close-to-home example, I said Jake Browning is making less than $1 million for the Bengals as a backup quarterback, and he may start in a playoff game. So you're telling me that Cameron Ward, who played 2 years at Washington State, should be commanding, or like basically asking for $1.5 to $2 million to play quarterback for 1 year at a college? That's where we're going to have some problems financially, because and I respect Mike's opinion and the others that I work with. Don't get me wrong, because Mike had a good point. He did say, Anthony Davis may have been worth $2 million at Kentucky for that one season, and Mike's right. So that's where I think this is a hard one for me.
Because, in fact, I saw Kentucky, they played Penn State that year. And he and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and that whole group, his 1 year at Kentucky gave John his national championship, John Calipari. And, and at Ohio State, for 1 year, if Cam Ward makes that move from Washington State to Ohio State, everybody is assigned their own value based on what the entity believes the value happens to be. So somebody considers him to be of that value, while Jake Browning is getting whatever value the Bengals think he should get.
It's weird. It's strange days, and these are the big picture questions. And we've kind of covered the whole sport here in 15 minutes or so, but they're going to take a long time to figure out, whether it's the next version of the playoff. What are we doing with NIL and the portal? How do we, look at the Big Ten and the SEC versus everyone else? Because I do, and I have friends. I was talking to a dad this week for one of my son's teams, and he just said, at the end of the day, he's a big Buckeye fan. He said, at the end of the day, I almost prefer watching the NFL. And I told him, well, that's where this is headed in college football, because you're going to enjoy the big games. Penn State fans enjoy the big games. But, with the Big Ten changing and you're bouncing around, I just don't know what the appetite for Penn State at UCLA is, and I guess we'll find out next year.
Right, exactly, we will. And long-term in every sport. You talk about your son, and you mentioned him the last time you were on. How much fun is it for you as a father, and it can be nerve-wracking too, to see sports played at that level as opposed to the high-stakes levels and the money we're talking about in both college and the pros? What's that like for you, being around that when he's out there playing?
No, I mean, my son played junior high football, and my daughter plays all the sports too, and I help coach where I can, and it is still fun at its roots, right? Like the junior high football at its roots was a lot of fun. Last time I came on, we were driving back from his last game and listening to you call the Indiana radio game, and just to instill those things and the excitement. I think the appetite from that generation is still there. I would submit, though, like one night I was talking to Grant, and I was telling him about, hey, man, when I was your age, it was I'm trying to think exactly who won it when I was in 7th grade. I was like, Florida was going to beat Nebraska, but they needed this team to win, and then there was almost a split national title. And he goes, well, why did they do that? And I was like, well, why did they do what they did last weekend? Sometimes we just don't know.
I mean, this is a sport that has inched its way along. I mean, Joe Paterno called for a playoff back in 1975. For goodness sakes. I mean, it just inches its way. I'll never forget Bill talking to Jim Delaney when they went to 4. And I remember my initial comment to him was, Jim, I remember how hard it was for you to just get 2. And he laughed.
And now we're going to 12. And as I put in my column last Sunday, I said, if I know people and I know human nature, it's not going to be long till we add what we have now, 4, and add what we're getting, 12, and people are going to be calling for 16 before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have to ask you one last question, because Penn State's playing in the Peach Bowl against Lane Kiffin. How often have you been around Lane Kiffin, and what has been your thoughts if and when you've been around him?
So as much as he has this persona as this, on social media, his persona on that is very different from what you get in person. He's kind of a quiet talker, very different. And he's done a really good job of rebuilding, his persona in general. I mean, his coaching arc is unreal to think about. But I think what excites me about this game is these are two teams that both won 10 games, both lost the tough ones this year, both run the football and have a ton of talent. And I think for the winner of this game, do bowl games still provide a springboard into the following season? That's debatable. But I think for these two programs, the answer can be yes, because I think it's a significant step for Ole Miss winning a New Year's Day Six Bowl, and a significant step for Penn State with all that talent that after the Ohio State and Michigan losses really turned it up when they got unfortunately, when they got rid of Mike Yurcich, they started to turn it up on offense.
Yeah. Just very quickly, my sense on Lane has been he'll still be playful on Twitter, but in a lot of ways, a public persona, the maturity of him, both as a coach and a public persona, I think has been on display for a few years now.
Oh, for sure, and I look for that to continue. I mean, he's done a fantastic job at Ole Miss.
Yeah, he does. Thanks so much. Always enjoy every conversation we have. Tell DeCourcy I said hi, by the way. So
I will. I'll go start another argument with him when I get off the phone. Thanks so much, Steve. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill. Bill Bender, Sporting News. All right. Don't forget, we're going to have Gary Stokan on Monday's program, the president and CEO of the Peach Bowl. Looking forward to that. We're going to have him on at 1:45.